coming through.
Hair, makeup. Okay. Quiet over there. I'm recording. Okay. Hey, come on. Seriously now. Just kidding. What's up? How's it going, everyone? The obligatory cup of coffee from the DS Audio Cup. It makes everything sound, taste, sweeter and better. Just kidding. How are you guys doing today? By the way, do you know where that is coming from? Ha! Bet you didn't know. Trivia Friday. The great Inspector Kemp. Young Frankenstein.
Nice grouping.
Do you guys like that movie as much as I do? I think it's a freaking hoot. Couldn't be made today for $1 million, but $10 million, $100 million, $1 billion. Anyway, well, what's happening, everyone? Thanks for tuning back in. Let's dive right into it. Why don't we? So, last week's episode, by the way, this is episode 2 of season 5 in our analog reference video series. That's going to be rolling out over the next couple of weeks. And where we're going to be discussing all things high quality analog playback, turntable, cartridges, tone arms, phono stages, etc., etc. If you haven't tuned in to last week's episode, where I basically introduced the SAT LM09 tone arm and Lyra Atlas Lambda cartridge, I also actually dropped 4 files for you guys to listen to in comparison to what we're going to be talking about today, which is, of course, the Kuzma XL AIR turntable and the Kuzma Safir arm. I think those two are, even though price-wise they're apart, the Safir arm is about $23,000 US. The LM09 clicks in at right around $41,000 US. And the XL AIR turntable clicks in right around $62,000 US. So, lots of moolah. But, what I was getting at is this. Instead of me just talking about how I think it sounds, I figured let me drop the files into my Dropbox so you guys can hear for yourself what it sounds like and what it does and doesn't do, in your opinion. And so I uploaded those files namelessly, other than just to indicate that the first 2 were of Kind of Blue, Miles Davis, Flamenco Sketches. The second one was of Jennifer Warren's Hunter album, which is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. The title is called Way Down Low. It's got some grumph and oomph and unt down below. Anyway, I'm going to reveal which was which right now before we kick it into the Kuzma introduction. So, file 1 of Flamenco Sketches, as indicated by such title, was the drum rolls. Well, yes, it was the SAT and Lyra Atlas cartridge. Of course, the second title was the Kuzma Safir arm with the exactly identical Lyra Atlas Lambda cartridge set up expertly, and you have a one-on-one comparison. The second file, Way Down Low, is, again, file 1 was the SAT with the Lyra cartridge. File 2 was the Safir or Kuzma Safir arm. How did you hear it yourself? What did you think of it? A few of you already dropped comments in the previous video. Feel free to continue commenting on this video down below, because today we're also going to be uploading 4 more files onto that Dropbox account. We're going to be doing a yellow track. Well, quasi-yellow. It's Boris Blank's latest album. He's one half of yellow. And the wonderful, great, and superb sounding Shirley horn. But before we get into that, real quick, guys, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed that 62% of you that are watching this channel are doing so without having subscribed to it. If all of you 62% were to subscribe, we'd be at 10,000 subs. That would mean a lot to the Google algorithm gods, who would continue to promote these videos, etc., etc. If you're so inclined. If not, dude, don't worry about it. No big deal. That said, let's get right back into it. Kuzma. So, Franz Kuzma, mechanical engineer by trade. Excellent, excellent engineer. Yugoslavia, which is back in the day where he's from, Slovenia, more precisely, the Republic of Slovenia today, the country of Slovenia. Yugoslavia back in the day, during the communist era of Tito, produced some absolutely bonkers amazing engineers, as did many of these satellite countries, and indeed the Soviet Union itself. And so it's no surprise that Franz chose to create turntables with his engineering knowledge and expertise. What's really amazing is that he did it in frickin' Yugoslavia back in the day. The Federal Socialist Republic of Yugoslavia. I mean, just seriously, crazy. That said, Kuzma. I've been following Kuzma for, almost as long as I've been into vinyl, which is about 25 years now. And throughout the years, I've contemplated getting into Kuzma and, experiencing their wonderful creations firsthand by myself. And so, again, if you haven't watched the first video, I'm going to drop a link below where I talk more about, why I feel I have the chops to discuss these super high-end tone arms and turntables as a collector of probably 24 turntables over the last 25 years. Kuzma is really one of those companies that they're not into marketing. They're not into firlefanz. They're not into silliness. They're not into, let's create something for the sake of creating it. They're more of a true engineering company, which is when we can actually demonstratively do something better, we're going to make something better, right? And so, needless to say, their product line, which now consists of many turntables and many different tone arms, has, really garnered the respect of everyone, from their entry-level setups all the way up to the XL Air that you see right over there behind me. And, with it comes, obviously, the experience of being able to listen to their wonderful creations. So, the XL Air. Let's start with the big boy stuff first. Weighing in, as it sits right here, with 2 arm towers, a whopping 340-ish pounds. Yes, that monstrosity back there weighs 340 pounds, minus the rack. The rack's probably another, I would gather, 100 pounds maybe. So, yeah, it's not something that you would just simply plop down on your typical, shelf. You want something sturdy to support it. As with all things Kuzma, he's all about stiffness, inertness, controlling resonances, hence why the Kuzma XL Air, as well as many other of his turntables, are made out of bronze, except in my case, I opted to get it painted. He offers that as an option, so you don't have to use the standard either black color that he uses for some of the other turntables, or the natural bronze color that he uses for the XL and XL Air. By the way, the XL and XL Air are similar in the sense that The XL Air spun out of the great XL, which I owned before the XL Air. The XL is a formidable turntable. It is a standard ruby bearing, inverted ruby bearing turntable, and with a massive shaft, but it's a standard bearing. So for Franc to take it to the next level, he opted to add an air bearing to the XL Air, hence the name. And of course, in classic Franc fashion, he didn't want to deal with low pressure air bearings that basically just make things float on a cushion of air. He wanted to create a stiff air bearing, which requires much higher precision. It requires a compressor that is able to create anywhere from 4 to 5 bars of pressure, about 78 PSI for those in America. And needless to say, the compressor that's used, the air compressor used for this is a big industrial behemoth made by an Italian company called SIL Air, for silent air, although it's not all that silent. Shh, we won't tell that anyone. No, I'm just kidding. It's an industrial compressor, right? So it comes with a, what is it, 50-foot, 55-foot air hose. By implication, it is not meant to be set up in your listening room next to the turntable, because it comes on about every 2 or 3 minutes for about 20 or 30 seconds, regenerates that air pressure, and then sends it on through the hose. And a very extraordinary air filtration system that takes all the moisture out of the air to ensure that the air bearing only gets pure air sent to it. And then so when you look at the construction, there is a, what about a 1.25 inch quarter-sized thick shaft that fits into the bearing sleeve. There's like millions and millions of holes in that bearing sleeve that through the compressor obviously floats air, and therefore the whole thing is an air bearing, a very stiff air bearing. And the platter rotates, about as freely, as smoothly, as impeded from any influences as I've ever seen. I remember when I first set this up, I was like, okay, let's get this thing rolling. And I gave it a spin, and by golly, that thing was spinning for hours. I'm not even joking. So yeah, it's an incredibly well-engineered air bearing. And with the compressor, obviously, I have mine set up in the garage down below. So I drilled a hole through the floor. Yes. And of course, I never hear the compressor come on or off or whatever. You basically just switch it on before you start playing records so that the platter can spin. Of course, needless to say, because it's a high-pressure air bearing, the platter simply does not move at all when the air hose or when the air supply is turned off. Speaking of the platter, it weighs a whopping close to 100 pounds, about 44 kilos. So there is a aluminum sub platter that basically guides the air bearing. Then there is a bronze platter on top, a sub platter, and then the actual main platter comes on top. And that platter contraption weighs in right around 100 pounds. Again, going back to the earlier comment about the weight, with the 2 tone arm towers that are also made out of complete bronze. And again, he chooses bronze because of its inertness. Again, going back to his philosophy, stiffness, inertness, resonance, absorption as much as possible. So yeah, it's quite incredible. And of course, as with all things, it's a massive turntable that, in my humble opinion, produces incredible sound. I'll just say this because this is just an introduction. My opinion about how this all sounds is going to come down in the next video. So, that said, the difference from the XL to the XL Air is far bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was like, it's going to be a minute difference. Yeah, he's got an air bearing. No, trust me, I don't know if it's because obviously it is because of the air bearing, but I guess what I'm getting at is I didn't realize how much of an impact having an air bearing as the main bearing for the platter rotation, as opposed to an inverted ruby bearing like on the XL, that it would make that much of a difference. So, incredible. Moving on to the Kuzma Safir arm. If you guys recall, back in the annals of history, it was right around 2008 that Franc announced the 4-point tone arm that was quite revolutionary in the sense that, unlike a gimbaled bearing or a unipivot, the tone arm featured a 4-point bearing system. So the up and down motion, sideways motion in all planes of the arm was controlled by those 4 contact points rather than a gimbal or a unipivot. And of course, the thing was amazing, had built-in on-the-fly VTA adjustment. Again, in the whole theorem of Franc and all things Kuzma, very stiff, absorbing vibrations as much as possible. It was a very heavy arm. It is a very heavy arm. And, again, if you haven't checked out my preview of, why things have to be the way they are in the analog world, I invite you to check out my last week's video. But be that as it may, Franc, of course, not content with keeping things as they are, figured, okay, how do we take this to the next level? Well, the white piece of the arm that you see, the arm itself, is lab-grown industrial sapphire, hence the name of the arm, Sapphire. It is a 9-inch arm. It doesn't look as exploitive, let's call it that, and as intricate as the 4-point does, and that's for a very simple reason. Again, stiffness, inertness, wanting to remove any resonances as much as possible. He opted to remove that built-in on-the-fly VTA adjustment and move some of the other adjustments like azimuth closer to the back end of the arm itself. He also refined the counterweight setup a little bit as opposed to the 4-point. And it's a very heavy arm. Again, there's no free lunches, right? So if it's a very heavy arm, you generally want to use low compliance cartridges because of the resonance frequencies of the arm and cartridge interaction. If you have a very stiff arm, think of the suspension. The stylus is very soft, right? And so when you have a very stiff arm, you want to make sure that obviously the suspension is not overloaded, that it is able to move freely, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. And Sapphire was chosen for the reason that it basically removes the ringing frequency, or it moves the ringing frequency of itself way into the stratosphere, so to speak. I think it's way above 20 kilohertz in the plot diagram where you see itself ringing. And of course, carbon fiber, steel, titanium, aluminum, they all ring at a much, much lower frequency, which is in the audible range of our hearing. And so that was the primary reason why he went with the Sapphire arm tube, to get that way out as possible. So, all that said, where are we at? What are we doing? Well, that's basically the intro to the Safir arm and the Kuzma XL AIR turntable. Like I did last week, I'm going to upload these 4 additional files. You now know what the first 4 files were, which arm combo. I'm not going to tell you which arm combo the files are today. I'm going to reveal that next week during the next episode. So check it out. Drop a comment below. And hey, have a great weekend. We'll see you guys. Soon. Do download these files. I am really genuinely curious to hear what you think of them. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.